Hello everyone, I'm standing here at the beautiful Maroubra beach. I would like to acknowledge the Muru Oradao people who are the traditional custodian of this land. I would also like to pay my respect to the elders, both past and present. Every year on the 26th of January, Australia celebrates Australia Day. It's a national public holiday. It traditionally marks the 1788 landing of the First Fleet at Sydney Cove. In present-day Australia, we celebrate the diverse society, culture, and landscape of this country. It marks with family and community events and celebrations. We also have the community awards and citizenship ceremonies to welcome new Australians into the community. Australia is a multicultural and diverse country. How do you think different Australians think about this particular day? In this video, I would like to show you what this day meant for a number of different Australians. So follow me.
Well, as the newest generation and growing up in a Buddhist school where I've learned about right and wrong and interdependence, I can tell you that Australia Day is not right. It's very wrong. I mean, throughout our history, there's one really bad day in our history and we choose to celebrate it, rather than celebrating all the good things that have happened in our history. And I think it's so ironic that we choose that day as a public holiday because really we're just celebrating others' misfortunes. I mean, think about this. There's been an apology. Like, we've accepted that it's not right, so why do we choose to continue with this holiday? Some things are really good about Australia, and then other things just really don't make sense, and they really suck for all the people involved. Compared to other countries, there's less racism, less sexism, and as different cultures, we have a social harmony where there's no wars or no dividends in Australia. Like, I've got friends from all over the world. I've got a friend who's Filipino, and coming here, they had a lot of money in the Philippines, so they were all right, but she knows some people who have come here and they've basically been broke, and it's really not fair. Honestly, they took care of our land for the longest time, and when I go to Parliament, I don't see many Indigenous people there, like when I visited, and honestly they don't have as much of a voice as they used to before we came, and they should still have that same amount of respect and a voice. Just because their numbers are less, or we think we're slightly superior to them, it doesn't make any difference. They should still have a voice because they're human and they're like the rest of us, and unfortunately it's been passed down that they're different and they could harm us, or they have different ideas, so they shouldn't be put in power. But it's all going to change eventually, and when it does, I'll be glad to see it.
So, in our school we have a lot of different nationalities. We have Greek, Filipino, Tibetan, French, and English. The thing I like about having lots of different nationalities is that the people who will come from that place can tell us about what it's like to live there. And also Australia itself has a lot of different nationalities, because I discovered by looking at this globe that it's pretty much in the middle of everything. How they treated the Aboriginal people was not good once they came here, because they kind of just started chopping up the land and taking it because they didn't think anybody owned it. But the Aboriginal people didn't really own the land. They kind of just moved around, They don't really own any of it.
Honestly.
I grew up in Australia in the 1960s, and in my street there were 4 Aboriginal children who'd been taken from their family and they'd been sent to the orphanage in our street. And when we played with these kids, our friends in the street, we were really aware of the suffering of the separation from their family that had been caused for them. And we had a big compassion for this because as kids we knew that it wasn't okay to be separate from your family, but we also felt confused. We couldn't understand why our friends had been taken from their family. We didn't know that it was a policy of the Australian government at the time to take Aboriginal children and put them into institutions and foster care. And it became something that was a really sad experience from my childhood. And in the 1970s, I grew up in a multicultural setting. We had great migration into Australia, and over a period of time I created a real diversity of friends. And this was amazing because suddenly the food became delicious and interesting rather than just bland, and there was more language, and we had to navigate different family cultural traditions and beliefs, and this was a bit tricky, but it was a richness amongst our friendships that we really valued. And on this wave of migration into Australia, Buddhism made its way more into the mainstream of Australia, and my mother introduced me to the Buddha's teachings. And so my path through my life has been exploring the wisdom and compassion teachings of the Buddha. And now I'm the principal of the Daylesford Dharma School, which is the first Buddhist philosophical primary school to be registered in Australia. My name's Andrea Furness, and I'm also the co-founder of this school, along with Geshe Konchok Sering, who was a Tibetan refugee and is now an Australian resident. And at that time, when he had this amazing idea to create a school, his idea was to have the Australian curriculum taught in the school, but to teach it through a Buddhist lens. And that's not so that we were proselytizing and trying to create little Buddhists to be running around in Australia. It was so that we could graduate students who had a deep sense of their confidence and their inner knowing, and that they had an understanding that one of their roles is to make a positive contribution into their communities. And I guess that was the aim of setting up this school. And so every day for 14 years, our students have in the mornings meditated and looked deeply into concepts that the Buddha discussed, such as interdependence, impermanence, compassion and the difference between loving kindness and compassion, appreciating and understanding the differences in people, noticing that we have a projecting nature of mind and that there's an interbeing with all beings. And this is a really special thing to be able to have this taught every day to students. And I think it's particularly so in 2023, when I get a sense we're going to have a bit of a difficult year this year. This year is the year of the plebiscite, where we're going to make a vote on an Australian voice to the Indigenous people into the Parliament and into our Constitution. And I think it's going to bring up a lot of fear and a lot of suspicion for people. And so to support our students and our community through this transition, as people are able to have debate about what the good for Australia, what the best thing for Australia is, I would like our school to navigate this time with equanimity and with loving kindness. And by equanimity for Australia during this year, I mean where we create a calm that's informed by wisdom, and we understand that there's an interbeing between all people, and that we temper this with loving kindness, the understanding that all beings are worthy of our kindness, our friendliness, regardless of whether we label them as a friend, as an enemy, or as a stranger. And that's how I'll be spending 2023 as an Australian.
Hello, John. Happy Australia Day.
Thank you, Kai. Happy Australia Day from Buddha Care Australia.
Thank you, John, for your time. Now, your circumstances and family history is quite interesting in that you have multiple generations living in Australia. So from your perspective, what is Australia Day meant for you?
Firstly, Australia Day is the celebration of the arrival of the first fleet to Sydney in 1788, which started the migration of people mostly from England, but today people have come from many, many countries from around the world to Australia.
Thank you for that. And how has your view changed about Australia Day over the years?
Okay. Australia is a lucky country, the land of opportunity, education, good medical benefits, and a society that looks after all the people in Australia, whether they're rich or poor. But most importantly, it's a land of multiculturalism today. This land, which signifies and reinforces the idea of peace, harmony amongst our different cultures. Wherever we came from, we are now one people, all Australians, and together with the first people who came here in 50,000 years ago. My generation and further generations will carry out this aspiration of peace, harmony, and multiculturalism for all Australians in the future. And this is what Australia has become today. So I wish everybody happy Australia Day from Buddha Care Australia.
Well said, very well said. Thank you so much for your time, John, and happy Australia Day.
Yeah. Thank you, Kai. Happy Australia Day.
Maria says that falling in love is so easy. Billy Mango in Isaka so sick. These Caribbean beaches are really much better than heaven to me. But these indigo sundowns are painted on Santa Lucia. Jamaica rum, monsoon rain, wash away the pain on Santa Lucia. Woods where I come from are Bible black, but in this Caribbean shack it seems that words are more the pebbles on a Caribbean shore. Ba-da-da-ba-ba-da-ba-bee-da-da-da-da-bee-dee-da-da. Maria says that I think too much, I should just take it easy. Piensas demasiado, mi amor. Santa Lucia. Jamaica rum, monsoon rain, wash away the pain on Santa Lucia. Woods where I come come from a Bible black, but in this Caribbean shack it seems that words are more the pebbles on a Caribbean shore. I should just take it easy. Pensas demasiado, mi amor. Santa, Santa Lucia. Jamaica rum, the monsoon rain, wash away the pain on Santa, Santa Lucia. Santa Lucia. Be-dee-da. Santa Lucia. Wash away the pain.
Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Venerable Sangha members, Buddhist fellows, ladies and gentlemen, many of us have just finished celebrating the New Year and Lunar New Year. It's an important cycle for ourselves, our family and friends get together. But today, the whole nation get together to celebrate Australia Day, an important cycle for us to live, to sacrifice, to serve, and to reflect. Many of us are come from overseas or born in another country, but we are able to come here to enjoy the democracy, the freedom, and the prosperity of this nation. As a Buddhist, we should not take this for granted. We should remember and be gratitude and live our life with a legacy for our children and the next generation. And remember of those pioneers and those who come to this nation, their home, and live their life with sacrifice and contribution. On behalf of the Buddhist Federation of Australia, may I wish you all, Venerable Sangha member, be successful in your practice and propagation the beautiful message of our Lord Buddha. May all Buddhist fellows be happy and well. May everyone who live in this country continuously enjoy and preserve the wealthy, the harmony, and the prosperity of this nation. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Thank you very much.
In modern day Australia, Australia Day is the most significant day regarding our nation's history. On this day, January 26, 235 years ago, the first fleet, led by Captain Arthur Phillip, landed in Sydney Cove, marking the beginning of a great young nation. This young nation has become one of the most diverse and lively countries in the world, where freedom, respect, fairness, and equality of opportunity are central to our nation's value. As a young Australian, I believe we should all come together to celebrate this significant day, and at the same time, respect the opinions of the Indigenous people. The Indigenous people have inhabited Australia for more than 60,000 years, long before European settlement. When the Europeans arrived, they had not only dispossessed the Indigenous people of their lands, but also changed the way the Indigenous people lived. That is why Australia Day is a day of mourning for Indigenous people. Because on this very day, they had lost their home and the way of lives that their ancestors had cherished for so long. Although there have been many initiatives to reconcile and to repair the relationship between Indigenous people and other Australians, there's still a lot to do. Whilst many of us celebrate the National Day of our great nation, the memories of loss on Australia Day are painful to the Indigenous people. As a young Australian, I wish that Australia Day would be a day for reconciliation and healing, a day of change for the better, and a day when the walk of lives all come together for nation building. Thank you.
In this video, you have seen a variety of different views on what Australia Day meant for different people. There is a common theme of respect, kindness, and compassion for others, especially for the Indigenous Australian. It reminds me of how lucky we are to live in Australia. I would also add that we should extend that kindness, compassion to other parts of the world beyond our national border, and to look after our land, treasure it, and enjoy what she has to offer. Happy Australian Day.